and then Trump wins. And this shocked the electorate as well as the establishment. And unfortunately, I hate to use the term because it's abused, but the establishment drank their own Kool-Aid. They had been playing the racists are overrunning the world game so long that they were buying into it. And then when Obama won, they bought into their own end of history meme. And then when Trump won, it basically caused their brains to explode. Uh, they essentially went onto a new way of looking at things where essentially the racists were back. They were on a rampage. They were armies marching through the streets. And that's a quote. um, but one of the things we found out was that Trump's team was poorly organized. Some suggest that he did not actually believe he was going to win. Uh, he was unable to actually take over the reins of government because, one, he did not understand what he needed to do walking through the door, and two, the Republican Party, which is controlled by the progressives as well, essentially sabotaged his transition into government by not helping him understand what positions he could fill, and also saddling him with people who were there to undermine him and undercut him in every way. Now, the effect of Trump is interesting because one of the things that I always have problems with Trump is that I can detect no functional philosophy in man. And I don't think he actually walked in the door of the presidency with a functional philosophy of any kind. I do believe he's essentially a very, very lightly a progressive who is steeped in some concepts of populism. Now, what happens is because Trump has 4 years to sit in place and work on this, the dissident factions of the establishment start slowly coalescing around Trump and his populist banner, a banner they've never had before and was being defined as it went along. So when the press ridiculed Trump, or ridiculed candidate Trump, and then vilified him as president, both of them were huge ratings boosts. It brought in more money than they'd had in a while. But at the same time, it brought in the most unhinged of the very far left. And this also drove out the right and center away from these legacy news programs, with the exception of the boomers who, sorry to overcharacterize a generation, but most of the boomers don't know where to go for other information. Now, legacy media made a partial come. And by the way, when Trump gets out of office, almost all the news media channels run into the same problems. They're losing money. The legacy media makes a partial comeback by making Trump into Mr. H. You know who I'm talking about, right? Mr. H, because they had to go there because they had gone so over the top before with their racist comparisons, basically suggesting he was the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. They had to one up themselves in order to get people back into clickbait mode, where they would come back to watch them on their news programs. So Mr. Trump becomes Mr. H. So the March of Progress occurs during the Biden administration. This idea that we were this end of history idea is still in their heads. They say, "Oh, well, we thought we were at the end of history before, but we were just really close." And Trump derailed us briefly, but we're going to get right back on track. The March of Progress continues. And this idea of infallibility comes into them. And we are now seeing this rush to surge the neoliberal order over the finish line. This idea that the end of history is right there if they just push hard enough. And that's what we're seeing throughout the Biden administration. Now, it may not be entirely him driving these ideas, but certainly the people on his staff are looking all over the place. And we see this rush to the finish line appearing everywhere in terms of the war in Ukraine as a final defeat to nationalism. We see it in the idea of uh, the super over sexualization of children in the school system as a methodology of control. There are so many things in play, and it's why there's such a frantic feel to what the Biden administration is doing, is because they think they're so close that if they just get there, somehow the accomplishment will be a permanent one. So, because they're pushing so hard, they kind of overreached. And this big neoliberal push is starting to lose its luster. Because Trump had 4 years during the Biden administration to slowly put his organization back together, we actually have a populist cadre that's been rising and is far better organized than what Trump had walking into the White House in 2016. Uh, this organization and this sense of urgency to basically complete neoliberalism uh, pushed the left into this whole lawfare thing. And I don't believe they actually thought they were going to really put Trump in jail. The whole time, I believe the idea was if they undermined his credibility, if they sucked enough cash away from him, that they could pretty much deflate him and win. However, this lawfare has been making the establishment look very weak. It makes them look like they're tottering on the edge. And this is, in some ways, the attacks, lawfare wise, on Trump are seen as personal by a lot of the people who follow him. However, those are people who would be following him no matter what. I think the biggest damage done is the fact that the establishment looks desperate and doesn't look like it knows what it's doing. I think this has given uh, some of the middle ground over to Trump. So, talking in terms of the media, I don't think there's a comeback for legacy media uh, because they have uh, their model is based on keeping hold of an ever shrinking pool of people. They need to continuously come up with a greater form of clickbait. And the Trump is Mr. H model is essentially as far as you can go. Who on earth could you possibly compare Trump to that has more impact than Mr. H? Oh, I guess you could try Satan, but I don't think the secular left would find that click higher than Mr. H. And so the thing is, this pool of people is partially populated by the boomers, and there are less of them every day. And the unhinged left is not a growing mass, and the effort to make the clickbait even more intense than it was before has reached an end point. There's no place to go. I don't think legacy media can recreate some kind of centralized or call it neutral ground anymore, where they pretend like, okay, we're now reporting both sides. We're now trying to give a neutral bent on things. If such a network popped up, there would be nobody to watch it. Uh, the time it would take to develop it, you would lose almost all the people who are interested in watching it when they've got their own forms of media that are far more tailored to what they want to actually see. So, in my opinion, we're watching the slow grinding end of legacy media over the next 10 years, maybe sooner. So, what do you think in the comments below? Uh, Anything not ring as correct as you'd like in terms of how I characterize the march of media? Did I miss some elements that might be useful for people to understand this? Well, let me know in the comments below. Please smash the like button. If the YouTube algorithms brought you here and you're not a regular subscriber, look at my other titles. Please consider subscribing. And of course, if somebody who might find this interesting, share it with them. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.